get to it.
Hey everyone, and welcome to our third online woodwork challenge. We have a special guest with us today. This is my son Colton. Colton, you want to say hi?
Hi.
And he's really excited to become famous so he can see himself on TV and be a YouTube star, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So listen, today's challenge is going to be about showing that you understand the stock breakout process. We talk about this all year long in all of my woodwork classes. It's a huge core concept to everything we do, and that's the acronym called FEWTL, F-E-W-T-E-L. And it's the process that we use in the order of operations in order to break out stock, or take a rough board and turn it into a square board, something that we can use in a project. For example, this piece of firewood here would not be very good to use in like gluing up a panel or having it as a leg for a piece of furniture. It's just doesn't work. So we have to go through this FEWTL, or this order of operations in that order, to produce a board that is square and flat and true that we can actually use in a project. Right?
Right.
Yeah. So, we're going to do that today using cucumbers. You ready, Cole?
And good cucumbers, by the way.
They are good cucumbers. Yeah, we were sampling them already. Okay. So the very first thing, Cole, in this process is to cut a board to rough length, because we might start with a board that's 8 or 10 feet long and all we need is a board that's 2 feet long. We don't want to go through this whole process on a board that is far longer than we need. So using the miter saw, we're going to cut this board to its rough length. Now before we do this, I just want to remind you all of safe knife handling techniques, because we're going to be using knives, and I think probably you will too. So whenever we're using a knife, let's make sure that the blade is pointing away from any of our fingers so that we don't cut ourselves, and that we're just going slow and careful, and make sure that your knife is good and sharp and you're not having to push too hard as well. So with that said, let's cut to rough length with the miter saw. You ready, Cole?
Yeah.
Okay. So nice and square. There we go. Chop that thing. Good. Okay, so that goes in the waste bin like that. We're gonna eat that later. So there we go. Now we're ready to actually start producing something flat. We're gonna go to the jointer and we're going to joint a first face. So that's the F in our FEWTL acronym, our first face. So with your knife, making sure that your fingers are well away from the direction of the blade, we're going to make sure, and we're going to cut very nice and straight. Actually, I can cut a little bit more. Well, that was quite a bit. Okay, so we've taken off one, oh, that was good. Perfectly flat. We can test it, yep. That's pretty flat. We can verify that on the jointer table, right? That's nice and flat. It's a good first face. So we would mark that down with a pencil, make a little F on there or something. I know that's going to be hard for us to do. Okay, so we're still on the jointer now. The next letter in our order of operations is E, F-E. So face, edge. That's the next thing. So our face that we just created goes against the fence on the jointer. And now we are going to cut a perfectly square. You got that, Cole, lined up?
Yeah.
A perfectly square or perpendicular edge. Hey, that's pretty good.
Thanks.
Right? So now we have another mark we can put. We have our face and our edge, and if we've done it right, those two should be perfectly square. It's a good place to start. The next letter in our order of operations is W, F-E-W, which stands for width. So we're going to take this board now to the ripping table saw, and we're with our face down and our edge against the fence. we're going to rip this board on the table saw to its final width. All right, so here we go. You got that, Cole?
Yep.
All right. Man, you're better at this than I am. So we now have a board that has a face, an edge, and it is ripped to width. So we're actually looking pretty square, I think. Okay, face, edge, width, F-E-W. T is the next letter, so thickness. We're gonna go back to the planer with our face, our first reference face down. We're going to plane off the top. The cutter head is on the top. We're going to plane off the top down to our finished board. So just like that, Cole, we're going to start really nice and as parallel as possible.
Slippery.
It is slippery. Look, not quite so parallel. That's okay.
No one's going to see.
Yeah, no one saw anything. That is about what you should have. All right, so we have face, edge, width, thickness. Right, so now we're actually getting a board that looks square, like something we could actually use. So that's taken care of. F-E-W-T. We only have two letters left, E and L. End and length. So we're actually going to go back to the miter saw where we started, or we could go to the crosscut table saw, and we're going to trim an end. That's our E. We need to trim this end again, even though we just cut this at the beginning, because we didn't cut that from any source of reference. We started with a totally round, unsquare, untrue, unflat board. We have no idea if that end cut was even close to square. So we have to go back now with our reference surfaces and trim that nice and square. So on the miter saw or the crosscut table saw, we're going to put this back on here and just trim a sliver off the end so I know I'm starting with a perpendicular square end. There we go. Nice. Okay, now I know that I have a square end on my board, and I can measure, put a little mark, and I can cut now to its final length, which is the L and the last process in our stock breakout procedure. So we're going to measure that, right, Cole? Yep. You're doing a tune-up. Measure that, and nice and square, just like that. Sure. You bet. Just like that. So face, edge, width, thickness, end, and length. That's our order. Okay, so now we have a board that is perfectly dressed, square, true, flat, everything that makes good furniture pieces on all 6 faces. All right, and that's what that is. So your challenge for the third assignment is to do this, just like we've done here. You can use anything in your house you want. You could use Play-Doh, you could use a loaf of bread, you could use a cucumber, you could use your imagination. Anything that's fun that you have laying around that you can do this, film a video and describe what you're doing just as we have here. I want to know that you understand the stock breakout process. Describe what the tools are that you're using in the wood shop. Describe what processes you're doing while you're doing that. And produce a square vegetable board. Bless you. That's good wood. Do you have anything else you want to say to my class, Cole?
Make sure to stay healthy and eat your vegetables.
Ah, that's good advice. That's it, you guys. thanks for tuning in.
And make sure to like and subscribe down below.
There you go. Like and subscribe. Cole wants to be famous. So this assignment will be due the following Friday, and I can't wait to see what you guys produce and send to me. So thanks so much.
Bye.